The quantum drive hummed with a low, almost imperceptible vibration that resonated through the command deck of the Zornak infiltration vessel. Commander Elena Rodriguez adjusted the neural interface crown nestled against her temporal lobes, her razor-sharp talons momentarily reflecting the holographic displays that surrounded her. Hundreds of years of galactic conquest had taught the Zornak one fundamental truth. Every civilization was nothing more than a resource waiting to be harvested. Humanity was about to become their next acquisition. The holographic display of Earth rotated slowly, a blue-green marble that seemed almost laughably primitive from their vantage point. Orbital scans had revealed a planet fractured by political boundaries, technological disparities, and what appeared to be constant internal conflicts. To the Zornak collective, human civilization looked like a house of cards. One gentle push would cause the entire structure to collapse. Lieutenant Korax, the mission's lead intelligence analyst, projected a series of intercepted human communications onto the main view screen. Each snippet reinforced their assessment. Humans were a species caught in their own technological adolescence. Their communication networks were filled with arguments about climate change, political divisions, economic inequalities. The Zornak had seen this pattern countless times before. Young civilizations always destroy themselves before they could become a genuine threat. Preliminary analysis suggests minimal resistance, Korax reported, his translator rendering his clicks and chirps into a flat, emotionless human language interface. Their most advanced research facilities are concentrated in predictable locations: Nevada, California, Massachusetts. We've identified 17 primary sites of technological innovation. Elena Rodriguez allowed herself a moment of contemptuous satisfaction. The Zornak had toppled civilizations with far more sophisticated defense systems. Humanity would be nothing more than a footnote in their expansive galactic archives. The infiltration team consisted of 12 of the collective's most skilled operatives. Each was equipped with technology so advanced it could rewrite molecular structures, bypass electromagnetic barriers, and manipulate quantum states with minimal effort. Their stealth technology could render them invisible to any known form of detection. Adaptive camouflage systems could mimic not just visual appearances, but electromagnetic signatures, thermal outputs, and even quantum entanglement patterns. What could a single species, confined to a single planet, possibly do to stop them? Deep within the ship's classified data cores, detailed files on human technological development were meticulously archived. The reports were simultaneously amusing and dismissive. Humans had only recently begun exploring their own solar system. Their most advanced spacecraft were little more than chemical-powered rockets that could barely reach their own moon. Their computational systems were primitive, relying on binary technologies that the Zornak had abandoned millennia ago. The mission parameters were straightforward: identify and extract key technological innovations, neutralize any potential resistance, and prepare the groundwork for a more comprehensive resource extraction. Humanity's resources, both technological and biological, would be systematically cataloged and integrated into the Zornak collective's expanding galactic infrastructure. Lieutenant Korax projected a series of intercepted human research documents: quantum computing prototypes, advanced materials research, genetic modification studies. All seemed promising, but ultimately rudimentary. The humans appeared to be struggling with technological challenges that the Zornak had solved centuries ago. Target facility selected, Korax announced. Groom Lake Research Complex. Minimal external security. Preliminary scans indicate standard perimeter defenses. Estimated infiltration success, 99.7%. Elena Rodriguez felt the familiar surge of anticipated victory. Another civilization, another resource to be claimed. The Zornak collective had expanded across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, consuming and integrating technological innovations from hundreds of species. Humanity would be no different. If only they knew how wrong they were. The ship's quantum drive pulsed with anticipation, preparing to breach the final distance between observation and invasion. 12 of the collective's most skilled operatives ran final system checks, their neural interfaces humming with calculated precision. Humanity had no idea what was coming. Or so the Zornak believed. The Groom Lake Research Complex emerged from the Nevada desert like a mirage of technological restraint. Chain-link fences surrounded a collection of nondescript buildings that appeared unremarkable to any casual observer. To the Zornak infiltration team, it looked like the epitome of human technological weakness, a target so vulnerable, it almost insulted their advanced capabilities. Lieutenant Kai Freeman led the advanced team, his neural interface calibrating their adaptive camouflage with mathematical precision. The team's stealth technology was a marvel of galactic engineering. Quantum refraction fields that could bend light, thermal, and electromagnetic signatures around their bodies. They could walk through the most sophisticated security systems like ghosts, leaving absolutely no trace of their presence. At least, that's what they believed. The first anomaly occurred precisely 2.3 milliseconds after their lead infiltration drone crossed the facility's outer perimeter. A quantum sensor, so subtle it was invisible to their most advanced scanning technologies, flickered to life. It wasn't a traditional sensor. It was something entirely different. Perimeter breach successful, Lieutenant Freeman reported to the command ship. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had infiltrated hundreds of planetary research facilities across the galaxy. No active defense systems detected. Proceeding with primary objective. 3 infiltration specialists materialized near the main research building. Their adaptive camouflage was a technological marvel, capable of mimicking not just visual appearances, but also thermal signatures, electromagnetic emissions, and even quantum entanglement patterns. To any conventional security system, they would be invisible. Dr. Marcus Williams watched their approach through a series of nested augmented reality interfaces, a ghost of a smile playing across his lips. The Zornak team moved with practiced efficiency. Lieutenant Freeman's secondary scanner began mapping the facility's internal layout, a process that should have taken milliseconds. Instead, something strange happened. The scanner's results kept shifting, morphing, presenting impossible geometries that defied standard spatial recognition. Interference detected, whispered Operative Lena Vasquez, her neural interface suddenly experiencing micro-stutters. Scanning systems experiencing. Her report was cut short. The first hint of trouble came when their quantum dampening fields began to destabilize. It was subtle at first, just a minor fluctuation that would have been imperceptible to less advanced species. But to the Zornak, it was like watching their most sophisticated technology begin to unravel at the molecular level. Lieutenant Freeman's neural interface suddenly projected a cascade of warning signals. Adaptive algorithmic countermeasures were systematically dismantling their stealth technologies faster than they could recalibrate. It was as if the facility itself was alive, learning, responding to their presence with an intelligence that defied everything they understood about technological defense. "This is impossible," Freeman muttered, his confidence fracturing. The building's seemingly standard security cameras began to move in ways that defied their mechanical limitations. They tracked the infiltration team with a precision that suggested something far beyond simple programmed movement. Each camera seemed to anticipate the team's next move before they even made it. Operative Vasquez attempted to activate their quantum disruption field, a technology that had neutralized countless planetary defense systems. Nothing happened. Instead, her neural interface began displaying a series of data streams that shouldn't exist. Fragments of information about their own ship, their mission parameters, their personal histories, all rendered with a clarity that suggested total information dominance. "Command, we have a situation," Freeman reported, his voice losing its earlier bravado. "Our system's error." The communication itself was a trap. The moment the transmission was initiated, a cascade of quantum-entangled algorithms began to trace and deconstruct their communication protocols. What should have been a simple, encrypted message became a vector for complete technological compromise. Inside the research facility, Dr. Williams continued to watch, not with monitoring equipment, not with traditional sensors, but with a system of computational matrices that was learning, adapting, and responding faster than any known technological framework in the known galaxy. The Zornak had believed they were the hunters. They were about to learn they were the prey. 12 of the collective's most skilled operatives stood frozen, their advanced technologies becoming nothing more than expensive paperweights. The Groom Lake Research Complex, a facility that had appeared so mundane, was revealing itself to be something entirely different. Humanity's first line of defense was nothing like what the Zornak had anticipated. And this was just the beginning. The moment broke like shattered glass. Reality itself seemed to warp and bend around the Zornak infiltration team. What had begun as a seemingly straightforward mission transformed into a nightmare of technological impossible. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the facility's primary control center, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that defied conventional understanding. The quantum computational matrix surrounding her was alive, not in any biological sense, but in a way that suggested an intelligence far beyond traditional artificial systems. Quantum entanglement initiated, she murmured, more to herself than to anyone else in the room. Each of the 12 Zornak operatives found themselves caught in a web of technological impossibility that they couldn't comprehend. The first wave of the human response was subtle. Holographic projections flickered into existence, creating impossible geometries that disrupted the Zornak's sensory inputs. Their advanced stealth technology, a system that had penetrated countless planetary defenses, began to unravel at the molecular level. Lieutenant Kai Freeman watched in mounting horror as their adaptive camouflage systems started to malfunction. The quantum sensors surrounding them weren't just detecting their presence, they were actively rewriting the fundamental parameters of their technological existence. Command. Freeman attempted to communicate. "We're experiencing." His transmission dissolved mid-sentence. The facility itself seemed to come alive. Standard surveillance cameras moved with impossible precision, tracking the infiltration team's movements before they even occurred. Quantum-entangled sensors created a three-dimensional matrix of detection that violated everything the Zornak understood about spatial recognition. Dr. Marcus Williams, seated at a secondary console, allowed himself a slight smile. The trap had been meticulously designed, not just as a defensive mechanism, but as a comprehensive technological study of an alien infiltration attempt. Each Zornak operative's neural interface began to display impossible streams of data, fragments of their own mission parameters, personal histories, and chip communications flickered across their vision. It was as if the facility was systematically deconstructing their entire technological framework, piece by impossible piece. Operative Lena Vasquez felt her neural interface begin to vibrate, a sensation that shouldn't have been possible with their advanced technology. The quantum computational matrices surrounding them were doing more than just detecting their presence. They were actively learning, adapting, transforming the very nature of technological engagement. Quantum disruption field compromised, her interface warned, the words dissolving almost as quickly as they appeared. The Zornak had conquered civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had toppled technological defenses that would have seemed impossible to lesser species. But this was something entirely different. Dr. Rodriguez's fingers continued their dance across the holographic interface. Each movement was a complex algorithm, a quantum computational sequence that was simultaneously defensive and investigative. The human system wasn't just stopping the infiltration, it was studying every microscopic detail of the Zornak's technological approach. Adaptive nanite swarms began to materialize around the infiltration team. These weren't traditional defensive mechanisms. They were something far more complex, a living, learning technological system that could deconstruct and analyze alien technologies at the molecular level. Lieutenant Freeman's neural interface began to display a cascading series of warnings. Their stealth technology, a system that had remained undetected through hundreds of planetary infiltrations, was being systematically dismantled. Not destroyed. Dismantled. Analyzed. Understood. The facility's computational matrix was writing and rewriting its own defensive algorithms faster than the Zornak could comprehend. Each microsecond saw a complete transformation of the defensive systems, creating a technological moving target that defied all known principles of computational defense. "This is impossible," Operative Vasquez whispered, her voice filled with a growing sense of terror. Impossible was precisely the point. The quantum ambush wasn't just a defensive mechanism. It was a comprehensive technological deconstruction of an entire alien infiltration strategy. The Zornak were about to learn that humanity's true technological strength lay not in individual innovations, but in their capacity to adapt, learn, and transform at a pace that defied conventional understanding. The trap had been sprung, and the Zornak were about to become its primary subjects of study. The deconstruction happened at a level so fundamental that the Zornak operatives couldn't even comprehend its mechanism. Their most advanced technologies were being systematically unraveled, not through brute force, but through an adaptive intelligence that seemed to breathe and think with every computational cycle. Dr. Marcus Williams watched the process with a clinical detachment that bordered on scientific ecstasy. The alien technologies weren't just being defeated, they were being dissected, understood, and ultimately transformed. Lieutenant Kai Freeman's neural interface began to display cascading streams of information that shouldn't have been possible. Fragments of Zornak technological history, mission parameters, and computational architectures were being pulled apart and reconstructed in real time. It was as if the entire technological framework of their civilization was being read like an open book. Adaptive matrix compromised, his interface warned, the words dissolving almost as quickly as they appeared. The nanite swarms were the first true indication of the nightmare's depth. Microscopic machines that looked like liquid metal began to flow around the Zornak operatives' equipment. These weren't simple defensive mechanisms. They were living, learning computational entities that could deconstruct alien technologies at the molecular level. Operative Lena Vasquez watched in horror as her most advanced stealth generator began to transform. The quantum refraction fields that had rendered them invisible to countless planetary defense systems were being systematically dismantled, their fundamental computational principles rewritten faster than she could comprehend. The Groom Lake Research Complex was no ordinary facility. What had appeared to be a standard research center was revealing itself as something far more complex, a technological crucible that could analyze, understand, and ultimately neutralize technologies from across the galaxy. "Impossible," Freeman muttered, though the word lost all meaning in the face of what was happening. Dr. Williams' primary computational matrix continued its relentless analysis. Each microsecond saw multiple layers of alien technology being deconstructed, understood, and ultimately reimagined. The human system wasn't just defending itself. It was learning, growing, evolving with each computational cycle. The Zornak had conquered civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had toppled technological defenses that would have seemed impossible to lesser species. But this was something entirely different. Quantum computational algorithms began to predict and neutralize Zornak tactics faster than the infiltration team could process. It was as if the entire facility was a living, breathing computational organism that could anticipate technological approaches before they were even conceived. Operative Vasquez's advanced scanning equipment began to display impossible data streams. Her neural interface showed fragments of information that suggested the facility was doing more than just defending itself. It was studying the Zornak with a level of comprehensive analysis that defied all known principles of technological engagement. The nanite swarms continued their relentless deconstruction. What had been cutting-edge alien technology moments ago was now being transformed into something entirely unrecognizable. Molecular structures were being rewritten, computational matrices dismantled and reconstructed with a precision that suggested a level of understanding far beyond simple defensive mechanisms. "Command," Lieutenant Freeman attempted to communicate. "We're experiencing." His transmission dissolved into a cascade of quantum-entangled data streams. Dr. Williams observed the process with a sense of clinical fascination. The human technological approach wasn't about overwhelming force. It was about comprehensive understanding, adaptive learning, and the capacity to transform technological paradigms at a moment's notice. The Zornak had believed they were the pinnacle of technological evolution. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Each computational cycle saw their most advanced technologies becoming less than rudimentary. The facility's quantum matrices were doing more than just neutralizing their infiltration attempt. They were conducting a comprehensive technological autopsy, understanding every microscopic detail of Zornak technological approaches. Operative Vasquez's neural interface began to display warning signals that defied comprehension. Their stealth technologies, systems that had remained undetected through hundreds of planetary infiltrations, were being systematically dismantled. Not destroyed, analyzed, understood, transformed. The technological nightmare was only beginning. Humanity was about to teach the Zornak a lesson they would never forget. The human counterattack transcended physical technology. It was a surgical strike of psychological precision that the Zornak had no framework to comprehend or resist. Holographic projections materialized around the infiltration team, each display a perfect, intimate reconstruction of their most private moments. Lieutenant Kai Freeman watched in horror as scenes from his childhood played out with impossible accuracy, moments he had never shared, memories so personal they existed only in the deepest recesses of his neural archives. Dr. Elena Rodriguez controlled the psychological projection matrix with a level of precision that bordered on the supernatural. Each holographic image was more than a visual representation. It was a computational deconstruction of the Zornak operative's psychological infrastructure. Operative Lena Vasquez saw her family's homeworld appear around her, not as a generic representation, but with microscopic details that no external observation could have captured. The quantum-entangled projection systems were doing more than displaying images. They were dismantling the very concept of psychological privacy. "This is impossible," Lieutenant Freeman whispered, though the words lost all meaning in the face of what was unfolding. The psychological attack wasn't just about information. It was a comprehensive deconstruction of the Zornak's collective understanding of privacy, security, and technological superiority. Family memories flickered to life, moments of personal vulnerability, classified mission reports that should have been impossible to access. Each projection was a precision-guided psychological weapon that bypassed every defensive mechanism the Zornak believed they possessed. Dr. Marcus Williams watched the process with a clinical detachment that suggested this was nothing more than a scientific experiment. The human system was conducting a comprehensive psychological analysis that went far beyond traditional intelligence gathering. Quantum computational matrices began to predict and manipulate psychological responses with a level of precision that defied comprehension. It wasn't just about displaying information. It was about understanding the deepest, most fundamental psychological mechanisms of an entire alien species. Operative Vasquez felt her neural interface begin to destabilize. The projections weren't just external displays. They were actively rewriting her psychological computational matrices, creating feedback loops of emotional and cognitive vulnerability that she couldn't comprehend or resist. The Zornak had believed themselves masters of psychological warfare. They were about to learn the true meaning of technological and psychological dismantling. Each holographic projection began to layer multiple levels of psychological complexity. Personal memories mixed with classified information. Intimate moments intertwined with strategic mission parameters. The lines between personal history, technological infrastructure, and psychological defense mechanisms began to blur. Lieutenant Freeman's most classified memories began to play out around him. Missions that had never been recorded. Technological innovations that existed only in the most secure computational archives of the Zornak Collective. The human system was doing more than displaying information. It was comprehensively deconstructing the very concept of psychological security. Dr. Rodriguez's fingers continued their dance across the quantum computational interface. Each movement was a complex algorithm designed to probe, understand, and ultimately manipulate the psychological infrastructure of an entire alien infiltration team. The nanite projection systems continued their relentless psychological deconstruction. What had been private moments, classified information, and deeply protected memories were now becoming a comprehensive map of Zornak psychological and technological vulnerabilities. Command, Operative Vasquez attempted to communicate, her voice breaking. Her transmission dissolved into a cascade of quantum-entangled psychological data streams. The Groom Lake Research Complex was revealing itself to be something far beyond a simple research facility. It was a comprehensive psychological and technological analysis center that could deconstruct an entire alien infiltration approach at a level that defied comprehension. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was comprehensively understanding an entire alien civilization's psychological and technological infrastructure. The psychological decimation continued, each moment revealing deeper levels of vulnerability that the Zornak hadn't even known existed within their own technological and psychological frameworks. The true nightmare was only beginning. The transformation began with a silence more terrifying than any technological assault. Stripped of their advanced technologies, neural interfaces flickering like dying stars, the 12 Zornak operatives found themselves in a room that seemed to breathe with computational intelligence. Dr. Marcus Williams approached them not as a conqueror, but as a scientist preparing to conduct the most fascinating experiment in galactic history. "You have a choice," Williams said, his voice calm and clinical. The words seemed to materialize through the quantum computational matrix that surrounded them, each syllable a precise mathematical construct. Lieutenant Kai Freeman tried to maintain some semblance of dignity. His species had conquered civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had toppled technological defenses that would have crushed lesser species. But here, in this moment, he felt something he had never experienced before: absolute, fundamental vulnerability. Operative Lena Vasquez watched as holographic displays began to unfold around them. Not as weapons, but as something far more dangerous, an invitation to understanding. The human technological approach was nothing like the Zornak had anticipated. This wasn't about destruction. It was about comprehensive, ruthless knowledge. Dr. Williams began to demonstrate their technologies, not as a threat, but as a comprehensive display of possibility. Quantum computational matrices that could predict and manipulate reality at levels the Zornak had never conceived. Adaptive technological systems that could learn, grow, and transform faster than any known computational framework in the galaxy. "Your infiltration attempt," Williams explained, "is an opportunity, not for retribution, but for mutual understanding." The choice was brutal in its simplicity. The Zornak could become students, not conquerors. They would share their own knowledge, participate in a mutual exchange that went beyond mere data transfer. Their most advanced technologies would be systematically analyzed, understood, and ultimately transformed. Lieutenant Freeman felt something unprecedented surge through his neural pathways. Fear, respect, a combination that defied traditional emotional categorization. The quantum matrices surrounding them began to display layers of technological possibilities. It wasn't just about human innovations. It was about a comprehensive approach to technological and cultural evolution that the Zornak had never comprehended. Adaptive nanite systems began to interface with the Zornak's remaining technological infrastructure, not to destroy, to understand, to transform. "We are offering you a chance," Dr. Williams continued, "to be more than you have ever been." Each of the 12 operatives found themselves confronting a fundamental truth. Their civilization's approach to technological conquest was about to be completely dismantled and reimagined. The human facility was doing more than just neutralizing an infiltration attempt. It was conducting a comprehensive technological and cultural autopsy of an entire galactic civilization. Operative Vasquez watched as fragments of Zornak technological history began to be systematically displayed, analyzed, and reimagined. Their most classified innovations, systems that had remained hidden for centuries, were being comprehensively understood in ways that defied their most advanced computational frameworks. The negotiation wasn't about surrender. It was about transformation. Dr. Williams' computational matrix continued its relentless analysis. Each microsecond saw multiple layers of Zornak technological and cultural infrastructure being deconstructed, understood, and ultimately reimagined. Lieutenant Freeman realized something fundamental. Humanity wasn't interested in conquest. They were interested in comprehensive, mutual understanding. The quantum computational interfaces began to display potential futures: collaborative technological development, cultural exchanges that went beyond simple information transfer, a comprehensive reimagining of galactic interaction that the Zornak had never conceived possible. "Your choice," Dr. Williams said, the words hanging in the quantum-entangled computational space, "is whether you want to be a footnote in galactic history or a collaborative partner in its future." The Zornak operatives looked at each other. Their entire understanding of technological and cultural interaction was being systematically dismantled and reconstructed. Humanity was offering them something unprecedented: a chance to be more than they had ever imagined. The transformation was both brutal and elegant. Lieutenant Kai Freeman found himself seated in a learning environment that defied every conceptual framework of education he had ever known. What had begun as an infiltration mission had become a comprehensive deconstruction of everything the Zornak believed about technological and cultural superiority. Dr. Marcus Williams moved between holographic interfaces with a grace that suggested the computational systems were extensions of his own consciousness. Each movement was a complex algorithm, each gesture a computational dance that revealed layers of technological understanding the Zornak had never conceived possible. "Your technological approach," Williams explained, his voice clinical and precise, "is fundamentally flawed." The words hung in the quantum-entangled computational space, a surgical strike of intellectual dismantling that cut deeper than any physical weapon. Operative Lena Vasquez watched as their most classified technological innovations were systematically displayed, analyzed, and ultimately reimagined. The Zornak had believed themselves to be the pinnacle of galactic technological evolution. Now, they were nothing more than students, and poorly prepared ones at that. The learning process was ruthless in its comprehensiveness. Human researchers demonstrated technological principles that made the Zornak's most advanced systems look like primitive computational toys. Quantum computational matrices that could predict and manipulate reality at levels that defied comprehension. Adaptive technological systems that could learn, grow, and transform faster than the Zornak could even conceptualize. Lieutenant Freeman's neural interface, what remained of it, continued to display a cascading series of revelations. Their civilization's approach to technological development was fundamentally broken, hierarchical, rigid, incapable of true adaptive thinking. The humans weren't just showing their technologies. They were comprehensively deconstructing the Zornak's entire conceptual framework of technological and cultural development. "Observe," Dr. Williams would say, and entire computational paradigms would be dismantled and reconstructed in milliseconds. Adaptive nanite systems continued to interface with the remaining Zornak technological infrastructure, not to destroy, to understand, to transform. Each microscopic machine was a learning entity, capable of comprehending and reimagining technological approaches at a level that defied the Zornak's most advanced computational frameworks. Operative Vasquez felt something she had never experienced before: absolute fundamental humiliation. The Zornak Collective had conquered civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had toppled technological defenses that would have crushed lesser species. But here, in this moment, they were nothing more than children being taught the most basic principles of technological and cultural interaction. Dr. Williams' computational matrix continued its relentless analysis. Each microsecond saw multiple layers of Zornak technological and cultural infrastructure being comprehensively deconstructed, understood, and ultimately reimagined. "Your primary failure," Williams explained, "is your inability to truly adapt." The words were a quantum computational scalpel, surgically dismantling every conceptual framework the Zornak believed about their own technological superiority. Holographic displays began to show the fundamental flaws in Zornak technological development. Rigid hierarchical structures, inability to incorporate diverse perspectives, a technological approach so fundamentally broken that it was miraculous they had achieved interstellar travel at all. Lieutenant Freeman took notes, something he would have considered beneath him mere hours ago. Each revelation was a computational blow that systematically dismantled everything he understood about technological and cultural development. The learning environment was ruthless in its comprehensiveness. Human researchers demonstrated technological principles that made the Zornak's most advanced systems look like children's computational toys. Quantum matrices that could predict and manipulate reality. Adaptive systems that could learn and transform at speeds that defied comprehension. Operative Vasquez watched as their most classified innovations were systematically displayed, analyzed, and reimagined. The Zornak had believed themselves to be the pinnacle of galactic technological evolution. Now, they were nothing more than students. Poorly prepared students. The humiliation was absolute, complete, total. Humanity wasn't just offering a chance to learn. They were comprehensively dismantling the Zornak's entire understanding of technological and cultural interaction. And the most terrifying part, the Zornak were beginning to understand that they needed this lesson more than they had ever needed anything in their galactic history. The transmission reached the Zornak Central Command with a quantum computational precision that defied traditional communication protocols. 12 operatives returned not as failures, but as reluctant ambassadors of a truth that would reshape the entire galactic understanding of technological and cultural evolution. Commander Elena Rodriguez of the Earth Diplomatic Technological Exchange watched the initial reactions unfold across multiple quantum-entangled communication matrices. The Zornak Collective was about to experience a transformation it could never have anticipated. Lieutenant Kai Freeman's report was unlike any diplomatic communication in galactic history. It wasn't a mission report. It was a comprehensive deconstruction of everything the Zornak believed about technological superiority, first contact, and cultural interaction. The central computational cores of the Zornak Collective began to process the transmission. Each data stream was a quantum computational sledgehammer, systematically dismantling centuries of established technological and cultural paradigms. "We were wrong," the report began, 4 words that would echo through the computational archives of an entire civilization. Operative Lena Vasquez had become something more than an infiltration specialist. She was now a living testament to a fundamental truth. Humanity's true strength lay not in conquest, but in the capacity for comprehensive understanding and transformation. The holographic displays at Zornak Central Command began to unfold the comprehensive report. Not a simple mission log, but a complete technological and cultural autopsy of their own civilization. Each revelation was more devastating than the last. Dr. Marcus Williams had prepared the report with the same clinical precision he had approached the initial infiltration. Every word was a carefully constructed quantum computational construct designed to challenge, provoke, and ultimately transform. The Zornak Collective had expanded across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy through technological conquest. They had toppled civilizations, consumed technological innovations, and believed themselves to be the ultimate evolutionary apex of galactic intelligence. Humanity was about to prove them catastrophically wrong. The report detailed not just the technological superiority of human systems, but the fundamental philosophical approach that made such superiority possible. Adaptive thinking, collaborative innovation, a technological framework that saw potential where others saw only resources to be consumed. Lieutenant Freeman's personal observations were particularly devastating. The hierarchical structure of Zornak technological development was fundamentally broken. Their approach to innovation was rigid, their cultural framework preventing true technological evolution. Humanity offered something unprecedented, a chance for comprehensive transformation. The quantum computational matrices at Central Command began to process the implications. Each microsecond saw multiple layers of Zornak technological and cultural infrastructure being comprehensively analyzed, challenged, and ultimately reimagined. Operative Vasquez's personal account was a quantum computational knife that cut through the Zornak's most fundamental beliefs. Their approach to technological development, to cultural interaction, to the very concept of galactic expansion, all of it was fundamentally flawed. The transmission wasn't just a report. It was an invitation to become more than they had ever imagined possible. Dr. Williams had orchestrated more than a simple first contact scenario. He had created a comprehensive framework for galactic technological and cultural transformation. The Zornak were about to become students in a school they didn't even know existed. The computational cores of the Zornak collective began to tremble, not with fear, with a growing sense of possibility that defied their entire historical understanding. Humanity wasn't offering conquest. They were offering evolution. The final lines of the transmission hung in the quantum-entangled communication space, a challenge and an invitation. We are prepared to help you become more than you have ever been. The choice is yours. The galaxy watched and waited. The Zornak collective stood at the precipice of a transformation they could never have anticipated. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of first contact. And this was only the beginning.